What's up guys, Big Ow here. Today we'll be surviving 100 days in Minecraft's newest biome, the Cherry Blossom biome. Let's get started. To start day 1, I spawn in a Cherry Blossom biome, which is exciting. I've heard those are pretty rare. I complete all the basic day 1 tasks, such as mining a tree, crafting a wooden pick, and immediately replacing it with a stone one. After crafting the rest of the stone tools, I look for a place to build a home. A skeleton decides to start some beef with me, but I end him quicker than Dream deleted his face reveal. I mine some coal on a ledge, then realize that I'm starting to get hungry, so I kill a bunch of sheep for food. Pro tip, if you turn the volume off, you can't hear them scream, and I'm pretty sure that means they died painlessly. It's pretty dark now, so I craft a bed and go to sleep. I start day 2 by deciding to build my home in a relatively open area next to some water. I also commit a hate crime. I've decided that my house must only lie on the flattest of land, so I spend a few minutes leveling the terrain. I also decide to make the house entirely out of cherry wood, so I start chopping down some trees. Once I have enough wood, I start the work on what will eventually be a giant 10x10 cube for me to live in. However, despite working more efficiently than one of those Nike sweatshop kids, I only get about halfway done before the end of the day. The next morning, I finish the giant cube. I even add a ceiling and a second floor to be extra fancy. I don't really know what I'm gonna do with all that extra space, but we'll figure it out later. In the meantime, I decide to dye my bed pink to fit the rest of the house. It looks good, but I'm starting to worry that my American parents will notice how much I like pink and have me neutered at the vet. It's day 4 and I somehow haven't crafted a chest till now, so I do that and throw all of my junk in there. I then head outside to admire my finished cube, except it isn't a cube because I messed up and made one of the sides too long. I dropped out of high school to become a SoundCloud rapper, so cut me some slack, okay? I spend the next few minutes breaking down the wall and building a new one. Now, you're probably thinking, wait, isn't it a waste of time to rebuild half the house just for it to be slightly smaller than the original? Anyway, I mine a bunch of sand to make windows, but it's gonna be a couple days before it all finishes smelting. It's time to make a mine, but since all 4 corners of my house are taken, I decide to dig out an entire basement first because I'm not going to dig a hole in the middle of my base like a psychopath. Anyway, it's time to mine. I know most people just run around in caves these days, but I'm a dig straight down kinda guy. It takes me like 10 minutes to get all the way down to Y-54, so it's now day 6. I head back to the surface to craft a shield and stronger weapons because I found a little cave and want to explore. Now, I know I just said I don't like running around in caves, but I still swear I'm not like those other girls. Anyway, I find some gold and redstone, but not much else. I start day 7 by clearing the mobs out of my yard, and after a close call with a creeper, decide to build a wall. Fox News tells me this strategy worked for America, so hopefully it works here too. I spend the rest of the day mining, and today's yield is a bit better than yesterday's, as I find a ton of iron and some lapis. Unfortunately, I discover that I don't have enough coal to smelt my resources, so I head out to find some. An Enderman decides to attack me for no reason, and it almost kills me. Anyway, I actually end up finding an emerald before I find any coal, which is pretty crazy because those are more rare than diamonds. I throw it in the chest where I spot the glass I forgot about earlier and dye it pink. I finally add some windows to my cube, and now that that's done, it's starting to look like an actual house. I decide it's time to clear a bunch of the forest to make a wheat farm. I start chopping trees, but this takes too long and I decide to just burn them all. However, when I try to craft flint and steel, I realize that I don't have any iron, so I proceed to spend most of the day mining for iron at the wrong Y level. This day was kind of a waste, I'm not gonna lie. I eventually find the right Y level and find enough iron to craft a full set of tools and armor. Day 11 was also rainy, which meant I couldn't burn down the forest. I start day 12 by burning down the forest. I also craft a bunch of golden shovels to level out the land I'll be planting on, but even after breaking 6 full shovels, I still have to use a stone one to finish the job. Once the land is flat, I build the outline of the farm while also adding gates to my wall so I don't have to use cultural appropriation to get on my own property. I start hoeing down the land, but since I forgot to add water, the dirt goes back to normal. This is pretty symbolic of my last relationship, as I forgot to have any money and she left me. Subscribe for more symbolism. Anyway, I plant the seeds I have and leave them to grow. Day 14 was pretty boring. I burned some sheep alive and made some epic gamer plays, but that's about it. I've started looking for a cave to find some diamonds in, but it isn't going so well. In fact, it's going so poorly that I start day 15 by trying to eliminate myself. Things do get slightly better though, as I find a bunch of iron in some smaller caves and also keep saving up more food as I explore. Things then get worse again as I spend most of day 16 exploring a cave that I thought would go somewhere. Another classic flashback to my last relationship. I do find a ruined portal on the way back to the house, and it has some decent loot, which is refreshing. What's even more refreshing is the next thing I find, which is a massive underwater cave that, when I mine some gold at the bottom of it, leads to an even more massive cave that I'll end up spending the next 3 days exploring. I find the first of many diamonds relatively quickly, as well as a pretty neat geode. The crystals make a nice ping sound when you mine them, so I proceed to mine an entire stack. Anyway, I completely walk past this diamond, which is hilarious because I find a much harder to spot vein of 10 diamonds right next to it. I also find 2 dungeons pretty close to each other, one of which has melon seeds, which are extremely rare on this world due to the fact that there aren't any jungles. On day 18, I dig back up to the surface. I was out of food and inventory space, so there wasn't much of a point to staying down there longer anyway. I spend the rest of the day running back to the house, where I craft some diamond gear and look for materials to enchant it with. Given that books take sugarcane and leather to craft, and this biome doesn't give me access to either, enchanting is gonna have to wait. Anyway, it's time to renovate the cube. I basically make it into a gigantic tree by placing stripped logs in the corners and making the roof out of leaves. The finished product is actually the first build on my channel that doesn't look like a child created it, but there's still definitely room to improve. I noticed that some of my wheat plants are done growing, so I harvest those and lure a couple of sheep in to start a sheep farm. However, I don't record the breeding because even though I'll probably end up killing them, I don't want the little sheeplings to get bullied in school like Kim Kardashian's kids. It's day 21 and we're finally gonna go to the Nether. It takes me a few minutes to mine the obsidian, but once we're done with that, I build the portal with a little fence around it and light it up. I hop in and we get a pretty good spawn in a Nether wastes biome. Unfortunately, I'm immediately harassed by a ghast, and after redirecting one of its fireballs into the pigmen, I'm forced to abandon ship. Hopefully the pigmen will cool off by tomorrow. It's tomorrow and the pigmen are still angry with me for some reason, so after trying and failing to get away, I'm forced to brutally end about 30 of them. They drop a decent amount of gold nuggets, so I might harvest another generation if I need a ton of gold later on. In the meantime, I'm finally able to kill that ghast that was bothering me earlier. I also start searching for structures to explore, and I find a bastion pretty much immediately. While heading back to the portal to gear up, I also spot a nether fortress. I honestly don't think I've gotten this lucky in the nether before, or in real life for that matter. After grabbing all my diamond gear, I realize that I have no food, so I spend day 23 converting the many stacks of flowers I have into bone meal and using it on the wheat farm. This is actually an incredibly inefficient way to get food, so after 20 minutes, I decide to switch things up and craft a fishing rod. Now, I haven't gone fishing since I pretended to be Pete Davidson on Tinder, but I apparently haven't lost my skill because I pull a Power 4 infinity bow pretty much immediately. I repair it with an anvil and decide to call it Bowser, after the green turtle from the hit movie Super Mario Bros. We're back in the Nether, where I'm about to abuse my new bow to take over the bastion. I know most people keep a few piglins alive to trade, but I've had too many bad experiences, so I just eliminate the entire species. Some people would call this overkill. Anyway, I start to get overconfident and have a couple of really close calls as a result. The brutes have like 50 hearts, so I can't just snipe them point blank like the regular piglins. I do eventually clear them out though, and start looting the chests. I find a couple of useful items, such as an ancient debris and a mending pickaxe, but the loot was honestly kind of bad overall and not worth the risk. It's time to explore the fortress, but my inventory is full, so I drop my stuff off in the overworld first. It's raining though, and since getting extra food is never a bad idea, I decide to spend the day fishing instead. I also decide to complete a couple of tasks I've been neglecting lately, such as replanting my wheat farm, breeding my sheep, and finally planting my melon seeds. I then head back to the Nether, but instead of going to the fortress, I trade a stack of gold with the piglins in an effort to get fire resistance potions. They give me exactly 1, which is worse luck than the time I got banned on Tinder for pretending to be Pete Davidson. 1 will have to do though, because we're now in the fortress. There's a spawner right next to the entrance, so I bow down the mobs in the area and start killing blazes. Everything goes well at first, but once I start taking more hits, I drink my potion just in case. The rest of the operation goes pretty smoothly, and once I have enough rods, I explore the rest of the fortress. I find some nether wart, which should be useful, but after that I don't really find anything interesting, so I decide to head out. Once we're back in the overworld, I clear my inventory again and use one of the blaze rods to craft a brewing stand. I put it on the second floor, which up until now had been about as useful as a pedal-powered wheelchair. I brew some awkward potions, then turn them into night vision potions, then realize that I don't actually need any potions and that I'm just wasting my time. After replanting my farm again, I realize that I've grown a pair of melons. It's been 3 sad and lonely years since I've seen a pair of melons. I think they changed the texture. It's time to craft Eyes of Ender and find the stronghold. I'm not going to kill the dragon, I just want to grab the books from the library to enchant. By the way, we're on day 31 now, so while we're finding the stronghold, let's recap on all the awesome stuff we did the first 30 days. It's day 32, and I've broken 4 Eyes of Ender on 8 throws, which is almost as unlucky as the time I tripped and fell onto my girlfriend's phone and also accidentally looked through it. Anyway, I eventually find where the stronghold should be and start digging down. I dig all the way to bedrock without finding anything, so I climb all the way back up and dig down again about 5 blocks away. I of course find the stronghold immediately and start looking for the libraries. It takes a few minutes, but I finally uncover a secret room that leads directly to them. I also find the portal room, but I'm not beating the dragon now, so I break the spawner and head back to the libraries. The chest loot isn't great, but I do get a bunch of smithing templates that I'll put on my diamond armor when I get back. I then mine enough books to last me the rest of the challenge and start to make my way out of the stronghold. Once I reach the surface, I make a little pillar to remember where it is and start heading back to the house. It takes me the rest of the day and the start of the next one to get there, but now I can finally start to enchant my stuff. After making an enchantment table and a ton of bookshelves, I repurposed the second floor to an enchanting room. Unfortunately, I only have 30 XP levels, so I decided to just enchant my pickaxe for now. I eventually want to enchant all my gear, so I start clearing an area for a mob farm that will hopefully help me earn XP more quickly. Once that's done, I tower up exactly 21 blocks so that the mobs have half a heart when they fall, then build the outline of the top of the farm. I use the rest of the blocks I have to fill in the floor and part of the walls before I jump down to grab more. I'm using whatever blocks I have to build this thing, so much like the average Discord mod, it's going to be ugly as hell. Also, to any Discord mods watching this video, don't worry, I wasn't talking about you. Anyway, after placing the trapdoors so the mobs actually fall through the farm, I'm finally done and I climb down. I've never actually made one of these before, but luckily I've done it right and the mobs start dropping down. However, I will have to fix the way I finish them off, because right now they're dropping as missiles instead of the harmless and almost dead entities they should be dropping as. I place obsidian at the bottom of the pit, and while I wait for more mobs to spawn, I decide to replant my wheat farm and harvest my melons. I also breed the sheep again, and even though the farm might be unethically crowded at this point, it's organic, so it's fine. Unfortunately, my mob farm still isn't working right for whatever reason, so I give up for now and head to the nether to get XP from mining quartz instead. Unfortunately, my game glitches out and takes away most of my XP, so I end up exiting the nether with less than I started with. I then spend the rest of the day trying to fix the mob farm, but unless this works, I'm about to just abandon it. I find a couple of pillagers to start the next day, but since villagers can't generate in this world, I have no idea how they spawn. I eliminate them and hang the ominous banner in my house to ward off any other foreigners. I also discovered that while the mob farm is working now, some of the mobs fall outside of the pit, so I spend the rest of the day fixing the issue, which ironically causes issues with fixing itself. It's day 40, and after finishing the thing from last night, I fortify the bottom of the pit with crying obsidian to make sure I don't ever have issues with it again. I also shear my sheep, which is actually something I've been doing for a while and just not putting in the video. I'm slowly saving the wool for a project down the line. In the meantime, I figured out a way to use the mob farm to get music discs, so I spend the first part of day 41 collecting them. I get 2 copies of Maul and 1 copy of Blocks, but after spending my last diamond on a jukebox, something weird happens when I put the disc in the machine.
I wear a mask with a smile for hours at a time.
Anyway, I make some fire resistance potions to use tomorrow in the nether, then, since it's raining, spend the rest of the day fishing. We're now in the nether, where I'm digging out the start of a netherite mine. I also use the wool I'd been saving up to craft beds to blow up down there. The process starts off okay, and I get to mine a couple ancient debris, but just like Logan Paul's Japan vlog, it goes downhill quickly, and there's so much lava in every direction that I'm forced to give up and head back to the surface. I mined enough netherite scraps to make an ingot, but when I do that and craft a smithing table, I make a discovery almost as devastating as the time I found out that the WWE was scripted. I thought you only needed armor trims to upgrade armor, but apparently there's a special one that you need to upgrade diamond tools to netherite, so I basically wasted the last 3 days mining when I should have been looking for that. Now, you'd think that's what I'd do now, but the next morning I mine a ton of sand for TNT that I end up blowing up down in the mine. I find more ancient debris, but once again I can't do anything with it. I also mine a ton of nether quartz for some XP, but today was kind of a waste overall. The next day I decide to pivot and add another layer to the mob farm. It's not going to be as ugly as the first layer because the only block I'm using is netherite, and when it's done it should cause mobs to spawn faster. This project pushes into day 46 as well, but it'll hopefully be worth the effort. As a side note, I also run out of the bad omen effect I got from killing those pillagers a while ago, so if you think I'm faking this challenge, this still doesn't prove I'm not, but go leave a very long and angry comment that I definitely won't delete so nobody else reads. I start day 47 by turning all the nether brick and gold nuggets I've mined into blocks so it takes up less inventory space. I then mine nether quartz until I get 30 XP levels that I use to enchant my diamond sword. I'm left with 27 levels, so I decide to just use those on some minor enchantments for the rest of my gear. We're back in the nether with the goal of finding a netherite upgrade template. They only spawn in bastions, so I start running in the opposite direction of the bastion I'd already found. I actually end up finding a second fortress, and after climbing it, decide to tap into my emo side and almost kill myself. I then sit back down at my keyboard and climb out of the lava I accidentally fell into. After getting through the second fortress, I find a third one right next to a blue biome. It feels like the game is taunting me at this point, but after only a couple more minutes of searching, I finally find the bastion. I decide to climb all the way to the top to start eliminating the piglins from above. We may have been able to coexist, but as an American, I don't stop to ask. After a comfortable amount of piglins have been removed, I start looting the chests. The first couple don't have much, but I get lucky on the third one and find a netherite upgrade template. Since that's all I needed, I don't bother looting the rest of the chests and start heading back to the portal. The journey is long and perilous, but much like the hard times you're going through, it eventually ends. Just kidding, but we are out of the nether now. I check out the crafting recipe for the netherite upgrade template, and after deciding that it was a stupid and unnecessary addition to the game, proceed to take my anger out on my sheep, which were starting to squish together too much anyway. I then head out to find the diamonds to make an extra upgrade template. I find an underwater cave, which quickly leads me to a regular cave that I decide to call Chicago for no particular reason. As I head deeper into the cave, I find a glow squid suffocating, so I decide to kill him to ease his suffering and also for the XP. I then discover a vein of 9 diamonds, which is more than enough to create the template, but since I've only been down here a couple minutes, I decide to stay a little while longer. This decision ends up not being worth it, as I only find one more diamond before deciding to head back up to the surface. After I get back up, I hit an epic gamer play on the way back to the house that hopefully makes up for the one that corrupted earlier in the video. Anyway, we've finally arrived at the house, where I dump all my off-camera loot into the furnaces and finally craft my netherite upgrade template. I also make an extra diamond pick to put Fortune 3 on. I decide to make a netherite sword first and head outside to test it out on the local minorities. Just kidding, I'm colorblind will be my excuse when questioned about this joke. Anyway, while I'm waiting to test it out at night, I unironically try to lure a pig into my farm with wheat. Not my best moment, but certainly better than what happens at night when my game glitches out and I lose all my XP. As a side note, we're on day 54 and more than halfway done now. I just don't like to say the number of every single day because it's already at the bottom of the screen and it just takes away from the video. Anyway, I decide to start another mining expedition because I really want to upgrade all my diamond stuff to netherite and I've run out of diamonds. Day 1 went kind of poorly. I got a bunch of stuff but ended with only 6 diamonds, which isn't even enough to make a single upgrade template. I did find a zombie villager though, which is an interesting development because up till now I was under the impression that those didn't even spawn in cherry blossom biomes. Day 2 started off with me narrowly avoiding a creeper and still somehow letting it blow up anyway, and the rest of the day was more of the same. I did find a dungeon with some pumpkin seeds and a god apple, so there's that, I guess. The final day of the expedition starts off with a few diamonds, giving me 9 total, but I'm out of inventory space, so I decide to end it here. I actually end up surfacing right next to the house, where I dump all the stuff in my very disorganized chests. On that note, it's time to create some sort of organization system, so it doesn't take me a full minute to find items I'm looking for. This will probably take a few days, so I grab a couple lava buckets to smelt all the stuff I mined while I work. I'm planning on storing everything in the basement, so I start breaking down the dirt wall to replace it with some fancier looking quartz blocks. I actually don't end up having enough to fill all the walls in, but you get the idea, it looks a lot better. This wasn't the only thing I did today, but I'm not going to narrate the same stuff 20 times. I start day 60 by placing all the chests I'll need down in the basement, as well as crafting a bunch of signs and labeling each one. I then start the long and tedious process of moving all my stuff into the right chests, a process I'm quickly distracted from by a group of pillagers appearing on my lawn. I know a lot of migrants think the grass is greener on the other side, but this entire world is the same biome, so there's no reason for them to leave where they're from. Anyway, it takes me the rest of the day to get all the items in their respective chests, but this will make any future project I start a heck of a lot easier. I'm going to need some more quartz to finish the walls, but I first combine my mending and fortune pickaxes and upgrade it to netherite to make my first maxed out tool. This comes in handy when I head down to the netherite mine to mine for quartz, because instead of getting 1 quartz per ore, I'm getting like 3 or 4. Once I'm done filling in the walls, I spend the rest of the day strip mining in the mine I made when I first built the house. Someone on the internet said mining just 1 block was better, and that's why I'm mining like this, but the last time I trusted something someone on the internet told me, I ended up in jail, so I'm wondering if this was just a silly prank. Anyway, I take a quick break from mining to harvest my first pumpkin and decide to use it to build an iron golem. I name it Iran Golem because it was punny and also because I couldn't come up with anything else. I then head back down into the mine and decide to strip mine like a normal person, an act I'm quickly rewarded by with a huge vein of diamonds. This makes me so happy that I apparently felt the need to turn around and show them off. This must be how OnlyFans models feel all the time. Anyway, I strip mine throughout the next day, and while I don't find as many diamonds, I still end the trip with 48, which I used to craft craft enough upgrade templates for all of my tools and armor. I spend most of the night killing mobs for XP, but I spot a zombie villager as the sun starts to come up. As I try to lure it back to my house, it goes up in flames, a strange parallel to my experiences with picking up women back in college. Since I have the upgrade templates, I just need netherite now, so I grab a ton of beds and head back into the netherite mine. I blow up a bunch of beds and find absolutely nothing, but as soon as I start strip mining instead, I find a vein of ancient debris, so I blow up another one out of spite. I then miss another piece of ancient debris because of a lava lake that I spent an hour trying to remove and ended up giving up on, then almost kill myself. Anyway, I blow up a few more beds and grab a few more ancient debris, but the last bed causes a huge lava lake to overflow the mine, and just like the termite problem at my house, I'm not dealing with this right now, so I head back to the overworld. After organizing my inventory and mining some sand to craft more glass bottles, I make some more fire resistance potions for the road. A thunderstorm begins while my potions are brewing, so I head outside to see if I can find any charged creepers. I proceed to find Step Golem trapped in a hole and rooting my mob farm. I quickly dig him out, but he proceeds to immediately commit an act that will probably place him on administrative leave for a while. Anyway, I spend the rest of the storm harvesting my crops and breeding my sheep, which to the naked eye might seem unethically crowded. Anyway, the rest of the footage was corrupted due to me accidentally deleting it all from my computer, so if you are one of the 3 people that actually make it to this point in the video, thanks for watching.